It's time. We have got to do college football playoff picks, and we got to crown a national champion. And this is as real as it gets. On a show that doesn't focus on the playoff a lot, this is just about the last time you'll hear me talk about the playoff until November. Let's do one thing, Colin. There it is, right on cue. Let's remember our conference championship winners. I'm taking Bama over Georgia in the SEC. Doesn't mean anything. Both of them could make the playoff. I'm taking Ohio State over Iowa in the Big Ten. The Big 12, give me Texas over a surprise Oklahoma State team. I like Florida State over Clemson in the ACC, and I take Oregon over UCLA in the Pac-12 championship game. I had to go back and forth several times on how I think this playoff is going to shake out. And as I posted on Twitter earlier today, at WrestleMania 17, Vince McMahon told Michael Cole, "You want shocking? Tonight, you'll get shocking." And then what did he say, Jesse? "I guarantee it." I don't like following the crowd. And it's not just because I want to dress differently, although obviously I do. I just don't think the crowd's right very often. Meemaw used to tell me all the time, you see the crowd headed somewhere, you find the fork in the road and you take the deviant path. Don't be a deviant child. Take the deviant path because the deviant children are all hanging out together. I got to be real. That wasn't a Meemaw quote. I just made that up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have Ohio State win the Big Ten, and we're going to have them lock up the number 1 overall seed. Ohio State in the playoff. I got Bama winning the SEC. I've got Bama probably losing a game in the regular season, and therefore I think Alabama is going to lock up the number 2 seed on the strength of being the SEC champ. Here's where it gets a little muddy. I'm really high on Oregon. And so not only do I think the Oregon Ducks are going to win the Pac-12, I think Oregon is going to be a team that surges. I think Bo Nix is going to have a tremendous year, not just because of the poster in New York City. I think Oregon's going to make the playoff, and I think they're going to be the 3 seed. And that's because the 4 seed is actually coming from the Big Ten, and it's not Michigan. I think Penn State is going to find a way to lose 1 game and no more, and they may not play in the Big Ten championship game, but that 1-loss non-conference champ team that so many people will think is either Bama or Georgia, or it's Ohio State or Michigan, I think it's Penn State. You give me Ohio State, you give me Bama as the 1 and 2. I've got Oregon 3, and I got Penn State 4. There are obviously glaring omissions there. So let me address Georgia. My thought on Georgia is I think they're going to lose a regular season game, and I've got them losing in Atlanta. And a 2-loss Georgia team's not going to the playoff. It's kind of sacrilege to say right now. It's really not, guys. It's just hard to do. It's very hard to pull this off. There is stuff always working against you in this sport, but when you're trying to walk a tightrope 100 floors above the road, it's really, really hard to pull off. I don't obviously love them losing Branson Robinson, and that's before the season. It's not that they don't have capable guys in the backfield. I don't know that they've got like game-changing difference makers back there. And if I also don't know that they've got the kind of pass rush they've had in years past, and I'm looking at Carson Beck as highly as I think of him and asking him to do with that receiver room what no one's done in a long time, and that's find a 1,000-yard receiver somewhere in there, I just think the margins are a lot thinner than the rest of America does. Now, it sounds kind of hypocritical because I got Georgia power rated as the number 1 team in the country right now. And if they played the playoffs today, I'd pick them to win the national championship. I think the course of the season is going to bear out that some teams are going to get better. And I don't necessarily know that Georgia surge that we've seen is going to happen this year. So I got them losing a regular season game. I don't know which one because that's not how I choose regular season records. And I think they're going to lose in Atlanta. So Georgia out of the playoffs, shocking though that may be. And I got Michigan out of the playoffs too, which was very simple but also very difficult. So what I think is going to happen is I think they're going to Penn State, and I've got them losing that game. And I also favor Ohio State over them at the end of the year. And so that would mean Michigan's not in the Big Ten title game. And Michigan doesn't have probably the strength of schedule to even lose 1 game and make the playoff unless some other stuff goes right. But I certainly don't have them in there if they lose 2 games. So we got Bama, Oregon in the 2-3 slot. We got Ohio State versus Penn State in a rematch. in the 1-4 spot, I think Alabama's going to be in the national championship game. I think Ohio State's going to be in the national championship game. In a rematch of that 2020 COVID year, I don't think that Ohio State will employ the same guys at linebacker to cover Alabama's best receiver as they did that particular game. I think Alabama's going to beat Ohio State for the national championship. So, it's obviously a phenomenal year for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. It is a phenomenal year for Nick Saban and Alabama. They're going to look so radically different. Both of them are going to look so radically different. This prediction will sound ludicrous when you watch how shaky they look at times early in the year. I'm telling you, and I'm telling myself because it's my prediction, I'm telling you, you're going to have to give them time. And hopefully they don't drop a couple of games and remove themselves from contention. You give Bama time, they're going to round into the best team in the country. You give Ohio State time, they're going to round into being right up there with being the best team in the country. The reason I'm going with Alabama is because I don't ever think the ability to win a championship playing the style they're going to play this year left the room. It's just that the team that was the best at doing it, Alabama, voluntarily decided to change their formula, and they did it very effectively. They're going to look so radically different this year. But I'm going to tell you one more time, and I've probably not been this blunt as I will right now because there's nothing left to hide. The season's here. I've never heard folks talk about an offensive line there like they've talked about in Tuscaloosa, the ones who have been there. And I am specifically telling you, I think they will annihilate people on the offensive line this year like you haven't seen them do in several years. I think they go about 7-8 deep with guys they fully trust to play the style of ball they're going to play. It is not going to be high flying. It's not going to overly impress you. It's not like watching a cheetah chase down its prey. It's a boa constrictor. And you keep sitting there and you watch him and he gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And you're like, is something going to happen? No, he's just going to crush him to death. Bama's just going to crush teams to death. Or in this case, they're going to grind them to death. And it's not going to be fun. They call it murder ball for a reason. But murder ball's back this year. And I think Alabama's going to win a national championship because of it. And you may be bored to tears in the process. But that's the direction I'm going. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Side note, if they're playing that style of ball, Jalen Milroe's the quarterback for them. Pretty much think it's been that way all fall. But I think Milroe's the guy for him.